Okay, I want to take most of the whole week to go over factoring a little bit more. Very, very important skill to have, and we use it for quadratics too, um, for graphing quadratics. So the first thing you always try to do, no matter what, is always try to see if you can factor out GCF. Okay, so in this case, I can divide both of these by 6. So I factor out that 6 right there. Okay. Now, had this been 6x, if I could have factored out a 6x, at the end you would be doing 6x equals 0, solving for x. That would be one of your equations. But because this is just a plain old 6, there's no variables, so we don't set up an equation. So we're just going to leave that 6 there for now. So now we're going to take this x squared minus 2, and we're going to do what's called difference of squares. Okay, because those are two perfect squares, I can take the square root of x squared, which is x, and the square root of 4, which is 2, and then just flip the signs, okay, because that's a difference of squares. So the product of the two back numbers here, the L in FOIL, that's going to be negative. So one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. Now, the other thing you got to remember when you're solving these is set them equal to 0 and solve for x. This is what I was talking about at the beginning, where had this been 6x, we would have said 6x equals 0. So we would have had 3 equations for this one. But in this case, we only have the 2. So we minus 2 from both sides. So x equals negative 2. And this one we would add 2 to both sides. So we get x equals 2. And these are the two places where the graph for a quadratic crosses the x-axis. Okay, these are called the roots, the zeros, the x-intercepts. Okay, now had this not been a perfect square, okay, had this 4 not been a perfect square, then we would have had to solve the equation the old-fashioned way, right? So if it had been minus 6, we would plus 6 to both sides and then take the square root of both sides. Okay, we didn't have to do that for this one, but that happens every once in a while. Okay. Now this one's a trinomial. Okay, so trinomials, we try to do product sum. The first thing, again, always try to see if you can factor out a GCF. This is 1. Okay, so I got a couple prime numbers here. There's no way I'm going to be able to factor out a GCF. So instead, I'm going to do product sum. So 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. And this middle number goes here. So what times what is negative 12? That adds to give me 1. So that's 4 times negative 3. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12, adds to give me 1. So I'm going to write x plus 4 times x minus 3. Now remember, you got to divide by this first number. A lot of times we can skip that step because the number in front's 1. But in this case, it's not 1, so we got to divide by 6. Before you do anything else, you got to reduce these fractions. So that's x plus 2/3 and x minus 1/2. Now, if we're just plain old factoring, that 3 is going to go in front and that 2 is going to go in front. But we can skip that step because we're solving for x. So we set both of these equal to 0. and solve for x. So here x is negative 2/3 and here is positive 1/2.